everyone, it's Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, and I'm sitting here at the Brain Summit with Dan Levitin. Dan, what is your passion in life, and what do you do?
My passion in life is playing music, either for myself or for other people. And what I do is I integrate that with my other passion, which is science. And I'm a neuroscientist who studies the musical brain.
So when I hear this, I want to ask you, what are you not? You play bass, saxophone, guitar, you do vocals, and you just said on stage that you learned how to play piano.
Yeah.
Is there more? Are you interested by all instruments?
Is that not enough?
Yes, it is. Yes.
I'm interested by all instruments. I did a tour with my friend Victor Wooten, who's a bass player, and he told me, bring any instrument you want. And I said, why? He says, because it's not about playing the instrument, it's about playing music. And I thought, that's exactly right.
But is there a difference of presence and of communion with the different instruments that you feel?
I can only talk about me, and I'm glad you asked, because nobody ever asks this. I learned to play saxophone when I was very young, and so I can think on the sax. If I can think of it, it comes out. There's an automaticness about that. The other instruments I picked up later, and so I think of them as different ways, different suits of clothing or different costumes.
Like what's your relationship, let's say, with guitar compared to sax?
Well, so guitar for me is a songwriting tool. And I like playing the blues on the electric guitar, and I like songwriting on the acoustic guitar. It's a nice accompanying instrument. It has chords. The saxophone doesn't. And I mostly play rock and blues and country on the guitar. I mostly play jazz and Broadway on the saxophone. And then on the piano, completely different.
Because you're further away from the piano, right? It's not as close to your body, for example.
And I'm not using, I'm holding the guitar, I'm blowing, the saxophone, I'm blowing into it.
It's so intimate in a way.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm kissing the mouthpiece.
Exactly.
But the piano, it's this great harmony engine. All the notes are laid out in front in a logical order. And I can put my fingers in the exact same places that Beethoven put his. And I can be Beethoven for an hour. And that's thrilling.
And we breathe the same air that dinosaurs breathe. Tell me something. When you were on stage, we discussed the power of sound and the silence that are between the notes and that the human brain kind of really likes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I learned that, learning piano, that the sound, the intervals between the notes of the piano are intervals of sound that are infinite. It's just the human ear cannot pick up on. Have you studied the brain enough to maybe think that at some point we'll be able to expand the capacity for the human ear to pick up?
What a great question. So there are some people who can do this. People train themselves. What you're talking about, of course, is the famous overtone series, that if I play you a tuning fork, you're hearing just one note. But if I play that same note on any instrument, you're hearing sympathetic vibrations in a very particular mathematical series that go up to infinity. So if I play you a piano note at, say, 100 hertz, it's going to vibrate at 200 and 300 and 400 all the way up to infinity. And we don't hear many of them beyond a certain point. And moreover, we don't really hear the other notes. We just hear a piano sound. And what separates a piano and a saxophone playing the same note is the relative amount of energy in those other frequencies that we don't identify. But people train themselves. Piano tuners, and I know musicians who say, oh, well, I can hear the fourth overtone and it's a little bit flat.
Dan, as a musician and a composer yourself, how much do you think art and music enhances your own performance? How much do you have to expose yourself to listening in order to become better at your own craft?
Oh, well, it's all about listening. I mentioned my friend Victor Wooten to you earlier, a great bass player. He asked a bunch of his friends, what is the most important thing you look for when you're hiring a bass player? And in one word. And I said taste. You have to have taste. Nothing else matters. But now that you've asked me this question, I would say more important than taste is listening.
And by taste, you mean musical taste?
Yeah, musical taste.
Of course.
But you've provoked me. More important
Please.
is to listen. Playing music with others, or even by yourself, you have to listen to what's happening and respond to what's happening in the moment. And if you're not a good listener, you're not a good speaker, you're not a good friend, you're not a good musician.
Let's talk about presence. In a stressful state in our society, most people are stuck in the sympathetic nervous system in their fight, flight, freeze. And when we stay there for too long, we become sick, physically, mentally. How does art and music allow us to better titrate between our sympathetic and parasympathetic branch, and how can we teach people how to do this, because it's not that complicated?
Art has been around for at least 50,000 years in our species, and it is a kind of default that we go to unless we're raised in Western society and it's bullied out of us. Kids sing, they go through a period, you know, you have children, you know, they went through a period of musical babbling alongside their linguistic babbling. They naturally create music, they naturally create art, but, you know, I would say teachers and some parents bully it out of them. They say, you're not good enough. You shouldn't be doing that, or you need to work harder at it. They squelch it. And it is a natural healing mode. The healing activities that most relax the brain and put it into a state where it can heal itself are walks in nature, sleeping.
Check. Half check. What else?
Art, and music being one of the arts that's most reliable for doing that. Because it's more engaging for most people than, say, looking at a painting, in that you can look at a painting and it can draw you in, and you can have a religious experience, a profound life-changing experience with a painting or a sculpture. But music and dance, by the way, have their own internal intrinsic rhythm. So they suck you in, they cause you to pay attention in a way that visual art doesn't always do.
Let's talk about hormones. In a society where, you know, we got an addiction to dopamine and lust and rage and those kinds of emotions, how can music bring us, not make us feel bored with the serotonin and the oxytocin? Because right now we look at teenagers and they don't find the same high that they get with their dopamine constantly. How can music bring them back into a more relaxed state that is not boring?
That's a wonderful question. So there's two parts to this. One is that young people now don't regard music the same way we did when we were younger. It's more like sonic wallpaper to them. It's a background, and they
do their homeworks and their projects listening to music.
Right, and there are thousands of studies now that show that trying to do your homework to music actually makes the outcome worse. Thousands of studies.
What? I've been telling my kids that it's okay because I had read that it could actually help, especially with kids with ADHD. That's not true?
It depends on what they're doing. Having music on in the background, setting aside ADHD or distractibility syndromes, which are a special case, for the average person, neurotypical person,
yes.
Music is distracting and it takes them out of paying attention, but it's so much more fun that they're deluded into thinking that it's better for them.
So we did trick them. We can trick them in the best way possible.
The other thing about music is that it's always different because your brain is different from moment to moment. So you find, if you engage with music and actually attend to it and immerse yourself in it, your brain is different than the last time you heard it. And the circumstances of listening are different. And so it really can feed that hormonal addiction loop, if you want to call it that desire for pleasure, for newness, even an old song.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're training the brain to listen differently as we listen.
Absolutely.
I'm going to bring this to another level. You might not have the response for it, but let's try.
Do we have to sit on the floor?
No. Actually, if we lie on the floor, it relaxes the nervous system. Do you think music can have a capacity to make conflict resolution easier?
There's some research coming out on this. Jonathan Dimmock in California, who runs the Resonance Project, and others are working on this very issue. It's based in part on a study I published that shows that when people listen to music together, their brain waves literally synchronize.
Unbelievable. We talked about that today.
Yeah.
it's how does that even work? So basically, it's making us feel more peaceful together.
Yeah, it releases oxytocin, which is a hormone that promotes trust. If you have people watch political speeches and you give them intranasal oxytocin or just a saline spray and they don't know which is which, they're more likely to vote for the person they saw while they had oxytocin in their system.
Maybe we should give it to the leaders themselves. That would change many things in our society.
Well, this is the hope, that for conflict resolution, you would get the heads of battling sections of the political parties or battling countries. And before you begin a negotiation, you listen to music together. Maybe you sing together. Then you sit down with your synchronized brainwaves.
I can't agree more. Music as a peace agent for better diplomacy
Absolutely.
and world relationships. Absolutely believe in it.
You should patent that.
Let's do it. What would you like to tell somebody who will come up next after you, in the years to come, hopefully, who will speak here or participate at the Brain Summit?
Oh, I wouldn't presume to tell them anything. Science changes so quickly. So much of what we learned in school, in science class, has either been refuted or modified to such a degree that you can't really rely on it. The most important thing, I think, I teach at McGill.
Yes.
I had spent almost all my academic career there. And I think a lot about what kind of world are we leaving our children? And it should be a world where they have a thirst for knowledge and they learn not a bunch of facts, but learn how to teach themselves, to educate themselves, and have a thirst for knowledge and a curiosity and an ability to interrogate facts that they come across to make sure that they are, well, maybe they never were true or maybe they're not true anymore.
What's the main thing you've picked up here as you've been here and speaking and participating in the Brain Summit?
I was just gratified to see at a scientific meeting, if you want to call it that, people from business, entrepreneurs, and musicians, performers, all coming together with a shared goal. So the biggest thing I picked up is that we've been siloed too long, and if you want to solve the biggest problems in the world, they would have been solved if they could have been done by somebody working alone in a silo. They would have been solved. The future of problem solving for the big problems, climate change, hunger, international aggression, medical problems, is going to have to come from cross-disciplinary perspectives. And in fact, there's a term I like even better than cross-disciplinary, which suggests that everybody stays in their silo and they simply talk to each other. I like the term transdisciplinary. We all rise above the disciplines and we just talk. And we all learn a little bit about what each other does. So that would be my advice to somebody who follows in this conference. If you're a neuroscientist, learn some English literature and some history and political science and music and engineering and math. Everybody should learn everything.
And we're having fun along the way.
I am.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.